Alright, today you're going to learn a little bit about the subjunctive. The subjunctive is not something that we necessarily have in English, but it is widely used in Spanish. What is the subjunctive? This is something that is used in multiple clause sentences, which means it'll have a main clause and a subordinate clause. And the subjunctive expresses will, influence, emotion, doubt, or denial. In order to form the subjunctive, you're going to follow the same steps that you do for negative to commands, usted, ustedes, and nosotros commands. Meaning that you start with going to the yo form of the present tense and drop the o, and then you'll add the subjunctive endings. For AR verbs, the subjunctive endings are a, ace, a, amos, ace, en, and ER and IR have a, as, a, amos, ice, an. So go ahead and draw your little boxes on your note sheets to make sure you get your verb endings in there for AR verbs and then ER and IR verbs. What is the difference between subjunctive and indicative? Indicative, that's present tense that you know it, that you already know. It's present, preterite, and perfect. The indicative states is used to express actions, states, or facts that the speaker considers to be certain. The certain is the biggest thing for regular verb tenses that you already know. The subjunctive expresses the speaker's attitude towards events as well as actions or states that the speaker views as uncertain. So again, indicative, certain, subjunctive is uncertain. Remember that we go to the yo form in order to pick up irregular yo form verbs. Verbs with the irregular yo form show that same irregularity throughout all forms of the present subjunctive. So again, it would be in all the forms. So digo would become diga, digas, diga, digamos, digais, and digan. Okay, so all the forms have that dig from the digo yo form. Some examples of verbs with irregular yo forms are like conozco, digo, hago, oigo, pongo, sigo, tengo, traigo, vengo, veo. That gives some examples of some forms that would have irregularities through all the forms in the subjunctive. Stem change verbs have a unique circumstance. Verbs that have a stem change in the present tense regular, so remember your boot verbs, those have the same changes in the present subjunctive. So think there's E to I, E, E to I, and O to U, E. IR verbs, so think your IR stem changers and preterite, they have an additional change in the nosotros and vosotros. So E to IE and E to I will also have E to I in nosotros and vosotros. That's an E changing to I. O to UE verbs will change in the boot, and then it will change O to U in nosotros and vosotros. Okay, so go ahead and conjugate entender and pedir. Notice pedir is an IR verb. Entender, we can see the boot formation here. E to IE, entienda, entiendas, entienda, entendamos, entendais, entiendan. So stem changing only in the boot because it's an ER verb. Pedir is an IR verb, so it's going to have changes in all 6 forms. It's an E to I, so it's an E to I in all forms. Pida, pidas, pida, pidamos, pidais, pidan. You'll notice that the 5 irregulars are very similar to the irregulars in the commands negative to, usted, ustedes, and nosotros. So that's dar, estar, ir, saber, and ser. You can just write these infinitives down if you want, because the irregular forms will be provided in a packet. Kargarzar also has that same changing that it had in the command. So the C changes to QU, the G changes to GU, and the Z changes to C. But that'll change in all the forms now. Okay, so that this ending will happen in all these forms and all these forms. So sake, 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 sakemo, sake, saken. I, there are. Its equivalent in subjunctive is aya, H-A-Y-A. Verbs of will and influence. So a clause is a group of the words that contains both a conjugated verb and a subject. So conjugated verb, subject. Yo, tú, él, usted. Nosotros, vosotros, ellos, ellas, and ustedes. In a subordinate clause or a subordinate noun clause, a group of words functions together as a noun. This will make sense with some examples. Okay, so when the subject of the main clause, so if you look right here, you're going to see yo, exerts will or influence on the subject of the subordinate clause. I know this gets grammary. The verb that follows that second subject will be in the subjunctive. So if you see how this is broken down, this is the example I'd put in your notes. You have the main clause, yo quiero, I want. I want is will or influence. We're going to have our connector K. That's almost always going to be your connector. Then you have your subordinate clause. I want that you go to the doctor. Just because I want you to go doesn't mean that you necessarily will go. Okay? The infinitive, remember a verb that's not conjugated, not the subjunctive is used with verbs and expressions of will influence if there's no change in subject. So think back, if that said, I want to go to the doctor, that would be, the verb would be in the infinitive. Okay, I want to go to Bogota in June, quiero ir a Bogota en junio. No change in subject. I prefer that you go in August, prefiero que vayas. This is the yo form, this is the to form, therefore I had a subject change. You're going to look to a worksheet that you have, 1 through 15, that's going to give you verbs of will and influence. Verbs of emotion, okay, remember you're going to have the main clause, the connector, and the subordinate clause. When the main clause expresses an emotion of hope, fear, joy, pity, or surprise, over here in that clause, then the verb in the subordinate clause is going to be in the subjunctive. And so I'm going to give you a list of those verbs as well. These two subjects also must be different. Okay, so here's an example of an emotion word. Espero, we have our K. Te recuperes pronto. I hope that you recover quickly. Okay, you are the subject here, I am the subject here, and we have the K in the middle. Ojalá, that's a great Spanish word. The subjunctive is also used with expressions of emotion that begin with K, like que lástima, que bueno que, or ojalá. Ojalá is I hope or I wish. It can also mean like God willing. It's actually an Arabic root word, ojalá. Again, the infinitive, not the subjunctive, is used when there's no change of subject in the sentence. Infinitive, non-conjugated verb. Verbs are doubt and denial. When the main clause implies doubt, uncertainty, or denial, the verb in the subordinate clause, so that second clause, will be in the subjunctive if the subject is different from that of the main clause. Okay, she doesn't believe that he wants to deceive us. No crees is doubt or denial. We have our connector K, then we have our subjunctive clause. And again, the infinitive, not the subjunctive, is used with verbs and expressions of doubt and denial if there is no change in subject. Okay, whenever you have the two clauses, you have the main clause, the K, and the subjunctive, Again, these two subjects need to be different. Quizás or tal vez, the subjunctive is also used after the word quizás and tal vez, both meaning perhaps or maybe, when they signal an uncertainty, even if there's no change in the subject. Okay, so we'll be practicing subjunctive in class. I hope this is helpful for you to start understanding the difference.